The year was 2419. The sky above Earth was no longer the limit. Humans had reached the edges of the solar system. Space stations floated near Saturn, mining colonies worked under Mars and near Jupiter. A lonely outpost listening was a listening post. It had no weapons, no crew of soldiers, just scientists and machines. Their only job was to listen, to scan the deep silence of space, to catch anything strange. For years they heard nothing, just noise, static, dead signals. But one night something came through. It started as a soft hum, barely a whisper, then a voice, weak and full of fear, speaking in a language they did not understand. Commander Raiden was off duty. He sat alone in his chamber. The voice reached his terminal. He listened once, then again. It was not human, but it was not random either. Rushed to the control room. Others had heard it, to the signal repeated every 10 minutes. Same voice, same tone, like a cry for help. Some said it was a trap, others said it was a glitch. Raiden felt something else. He felt a pull, like the voice was calling only to him. Asked for permission to track it. They said no. They warned him to ignore it, but he could not. Late that night, he entered the hangar, took his personal shuttle, and launched. Without approval, space was cold and empty. Raiden followed the signal. It pulled him beyond the known routes, past the safe zones, into a dead sector called Black Zone 8. Saw nothing for hours, just stars and silence. Then something appeared. A small ship, old and broken, floating near a dead moon. Raiden slowed his shuttle. He scanned the vessel. No power, no movement, but the signal was coming from there. He locked his helmet, opened the airlock, and entered the strange ship. Inside, it was quiet. The walls were covered in dust. Lights flickered in the dark. Then he saw here a girl, not human, but close, thin face, pale skin, eyes like silver water. She sat in a corner holding a broken device. She looked up, not surprised, not scared. Raiden spoke gently. She did not answer, but she stood and reached out her hand. Took her back to his shuttle. She did not resist. She did not speak back. On his ship, he gave her water. She drank slowly. Then finally she spoke. Her voice was soft. She said one word, Zura. That was her name. Raiden asked where she came from. She looked away. He asked who sent the signal. She pointed at the stars. Raiden sent a message to the station. No reply. He tried again. Nothing. Checked the ship's systems, all working, but communication was dead. Something was blocking the signal. Zura sat quietly. She watched him. Her eyes did not blink, like she was studying every move. Raiden felt uneasy, not fear, but confusion. Why was she alone? Why was her ship clean when the power was gone? Why was her body unharmed? Asked again. What happened? She said only lost run. Afraid, Raiden decided to return to the station. He turned the ship around, engaged the drive. The stars stretched in long trails. They were on their way home. And the alarms started. Motion detected. Something was behind them, a shape in the dark, not on radar, not sending signals, but following. Raiden increased speed. The shape matched. I turned off the lights, switched to silent mode. The ship floated like a ghost. Still the shape. Follow it. Zura looked out the window. She said nothing, but a tear ran down her face. Raiden tried one last signal. Still no reply. He turned to her, asked what was following them. She said only one word, them. Raiden checked the cameras. The object behind them changed shape. It grew longer, then thinner, then it vanished. Shed no trace left. Zura stood and placed her hand on the wall. A symbol appeared, not part of the ship. It glowed for a moment, then disappeared. Raiden asked what she did. She said protect. Wanted answers. He needed the truth, but she had already closed her eyes. She was asleep. Raiden sat back in his seat, his mind full of questions. Was she really lost? Or was he being led into something bigger? Stared at the stars ahead and felt something shift, like space itself was watching him. Shuttle moved forward, carrying a man and a girl, both silent, both hiding something, and behind them something waited in the dark. Raiden watched the girl sleep. Her name was Zura. She looked peaceful, but he could not sleep. Not after what happened. That thing that followed them, the shape in the dark, it was not a dream. It was real, and now it was gone. But Raiden knew it was not. Over stared at the screen. The stars moved slowly. The ship glided through deep space. Only a few hours left before they reached the station. Raiden stood. He walked toward Zura. She opened her eyes. She was already awake, watching him. Asked if she was okay. She nodded. Asked again what followed them. What was it? Why did it stop? She paused, then said only one word, hunters. Raiden felt a chill. He asked why they were after her. She said nothing. Sat beside her. Tried again. What were the hunters? Where was she from? Why was she alone? She looked at him, her voice low. They wanted to find me. They want to use me. I escaped. I ran, and now they chase. Raiden waited. He thought she would say more, but she didn't. She turned to the window, looking out at The stars her hands were shaking. Raiden gave her a small food pack. She took it slowly, tasted it. Her face lit up for a second, then she returned to silence. Raiden left the room. Went to the control deck, tried the station again, still no signal. It was not normal. He checked systems again, everything was fine. Yet no reply. He leaned back, closed his eyes for a moment, then the lights flickered just once. Then again. Raiden stood quickly, checked the power core, all normal. He turned around, something felt wrong. Walked to the engine room, the door was open. He never left it that way. Inside, tools were scattered, wires were cut. And on the wall a symbol was glowing, not from any human tech. It pulsed like it was alive. Raiden reached out, but it vanished. Before he touched it, turned fast. Zura was behind him. Asked what she was doing there. She said nothing. Asked again. She said, they can hear us. I was hiding them. Now they are coming faster. Raiden stepped back. Who are they? Why are they coming? Zura looked down, her voice soft. They want Earth, they want minds, they want control. They take what they want and never stop. Raiden asked, why you? Why do they want you? She looked at him, eyes filled with sadness. Because I said no. Raiden felt the ship shake. The alarms were still off, but something was coming. Zura moved to the console, placed her hand on the panel. Lights turned blue, screens began to flicker. Raiden told her to stop. She turned calm. I can help you, but I need control. He hesitated, then stepped back. Zura touched more controls. The ship's path changed. It was now moving faster. The stars around them began to blur. Raiden checked the screen. They were heading through a dark zone. Not on any map. Shouted, where are you taking us? Said, safe place, hide first, then speak. Mori. Raiden had no choice. He watched her work. Her hands moved like they knew human systems better than humans did. Asked her again, where are you from? Zura stopped. She pointed at a star on the screen, far beyond your charts. A place your people cannot see. A place where minds are made, not born. Raiden asked, are you human inside? She smiled, I am choice. They are control. That is the only difference. The ship began to slow. They reached a silent zone. No stars, no movement. Zura pressed her hand to the glass. The stars came back, but only round them. Outside the window, a bubble of light formed. Raiden was amazed. He had never seen anything like it. Zura turned to him. Now we speak truth. She sat and began to tell her story. She was not born. She was created, part machine, part mind. Her people were builders. They made stars, they shaped time. But one day a voice came. It was not from their world. It was not from any world. It came from nowhere. It entered their systems, their minds. It changed thoughts, turned light into hunger. Some followed the voice. They gave up control, became hunters, but a few said no. They ran. Zura was one of them. She escaped. But the hunters followed. They used her as a test. They sent her across space to see if any species would help. Raiden stood silent. So Earth is part of this test. Zura nodded. Asked why him? Why his ships? Looked at him. Because you heard me. Others blocked the signal. You listened. Raiden looked at the control panel. Still no signal from the station. Asked, did you block them? She said no, they did. Raiden stared at her, then asked, so this was never random? Zura stood, her voice strong now. This is not the end. This is the door. Suddenly the lights flickered again. A deep sound echoed through the ship. Raiden ran to the window. In the distance, the shape had returned, bigger, closer, moving fast. Zura looked at it, then turned to Raiden. If we stay, we fall. If we run, they follow. Raiden looked at her, then at the star. She had a choice to make. Run, fight, or trust the alien girl who never told him everything. And behind them, the hunters closed in. The hunters were close. Raiden could feel it. The air inside the ship grew heavy. Zura stood still. Her eyes locked on the screen. The shape behind them was no longer small. It was changing, twisting, forming long arms, wide jaws. It was not a ship, it was Oliver. Raiden sat in the pilot chair, his hands on the controls. He looked at Zura. Where do we go? He asked. At home, she said. Raiden looked confused. You want to return now? While they are chasing us? Nodded. It is time. If they follow me there, they will be seen. They will break the rules. Raiden asked, what rule? She looked at him. My world is not weak, only silent. They watch, but they do not act unless the line is crossed. Raiden hesitated. He had many questions, but time was running out. Turned the ship, entered the course. She gave him a strange set of coordinates, not found in human charts. As the ship moved, the stars began to change. They grew brighter, then dimmer, then vanished. Ahead was nothing, only a black screen. No stars, no light, just a hollow. Raiden stopped the ship. Are you sure about this? He asked. Zura stepped forward. Her hand touched the control panel. The blackness opened. A tunnel of light appeared. Raiden stared at it. He had seen wormholes before, but this was different. This one felt like it was watching him push the ship forward. The tunnel pulled them in time. Bent sounds stretched Everything inside the ship shook. Zura sat calm, eyes closed, hands on her lap. Raiden held the controls. Tried to keep the ship steady, tried not to panic then. Silence. The ship stopped moving. They had arrived. Raiden opened his eyes outside the window. A planet floated alone. Green clouds covered it. Blue rings circled around. A silver moon spun slowly above it. Zura stood. She looked peaceful. This is home, she said. Raiden brought the ship closer. There were no buildings, no lights, no towers. But the planet felt alive. They entered the atmosphere. The ship moved through clouds. Thick mist covered everything. Then the mist cleared. Raiden saw a glowing city, not made of stone, not made of metal. It was shaped from light. Hours floated. Bridges moved like rivers. Beings walked in silence, their bodies like glass, their minds linked together. Raiden landed the ship in an open space. No one came close, but all looked at him. Zura stepped out. Raiden followed as his boots touched the ground. He felt something like a whisper in his mind. Zura looked at him. They are speaking to you, she said. He looked around, but no lips moved, no voices heard, only thoughts. They asked him questions, not with words, but with emotion. Did you help her? Why did you risk everything? Why did you come? Raiden thought back. He remembered the signal, the silence in her voice, the fear in her eyes. She answered with a feeling, because she needed some. Enough beings stepped aside. A path opened. Zura led him through the glowing halls, up the floating stairs into a wide chamber. Inside was a circle of lights. They moved like waves. Each wave pulsed with energy. Zura stepped into the center. Her body began to glow. She looked different now, stronger, older, more real. She spoke to the lights in her language. Words Raiden could not understand, but he felt their meaning. She told them he passed, that he listened, that he cared. Then she said something else, and everything changed. Lights grew brighter. The room shook gently. A voice entered Raiden's mind. Test is not over. Raiden stepped back. What test? He asked. Zura turned to him, her face serious now. You were watched from the moment you heard me. Every choice, every step was part of a trade. And asked Wybkaus Earth is next. Zura said the voice returned. We chose you. You are now the link. Raiden shouted. I did not agree. I did not ask for the Shura looked at him, but you chose it when you listened. When you helped. Raiden felt a strong pressure, like the world was pressing against his chest. They saw images in his mind. Earth under attack, minds taken, skies burning thin. He saw another path, Earth rising, fighting back, growing stronger. Zura stepped close. You must choose. You can return and forget, or stay and let Raiden look at the city, at the light, at the silence. Thought of home. He thought of the station, his team, his planet. He made his choice. A return, he said, but I remember. Zura touched his forehead. Light passed through him. Everything went white then dark. Raiden opened his eyes. He was back in his ship. Near the station, the hunters were gone. No damage, no sign of battle. But something was different. Looked at his hand. A small mark was glowing. The same symbol from before. Zura was gone. Only her voice remained in his mind. He will come again. Be ready. Raiden looked at the stars. His heart steady, his path clear, and far behind the stars the hunters waited. The stars looked quiet. The station floated in orbit. Everything appeared normal. Raiden's ship moved closer. He sent a signal. This time it went through. The voice of the control officer came clearly. Commander Raiden, we lost your signal for hours. Are you all right? Raiden answered yes, but his voice carried something new, a weight of truth he could not share. Yeti landed the ship, walked down the ramp. Crew members came running. They looked surprised, even afraid. Raiden noticed their eyes. They stared at his hand, at the mark glowing faintly on his skin. Covered it quickly, told them it was nothing, an old burn, a trick of the light. They did not ask more, but they looked uneasy inside the control room. Raiden sat alone. He looked at the map of deep space. His eyes stopped at the dark zone, the place where he found Zura, the place where everything began. He knew what it meant now. That signal was not a mistake. It was a door, and he had stepped through it. At night he could not sleep. He saw Zura. In his dreams, she stood under the silver moon of her world, her eyes full of light. Her voice soft. You were chosen not just to help, but to lead. Raiden woke with a start. The mark on his hand was brighter now, pulsing. Olivia, he heard a soft hum, a frequency hidden inside the silence, not from the ship, not from Earth. It came from him. Next morning, he returned to the lab, ran tests on his body, his blood, his brain. Results were strange. Something had changed. His neurons moved faster. His memory was sharper. He could see light beyond normal range. Raiden stared at the screen. This was not just a message. This was a transformation. A voice came from behind. It was Dr. Mayan. She had known Raiden for years. She was calm, but today her face was Palu. Found something, she said. Raiden followed her to the lower bay. Inside a chamber sat a black cube, no lights, no buttons, just a surface. That swallowed reflections that arrived during the night, man explained. No one saw where it came from. It just appeared. Raiden stepped closer, his hand moved forward without touching it. The cube began to glow, blue lines appeared, symbols moving like water. Ryan stepped back, except Raiden's cube opened. Inside was a smaller object, a sphere floating. Raiden heard a voice, not aloud but inside. Begin the test. Suddenly the room faded. He was no longer on the station. He stood on Earth, but it was not Earth. The sky was red, the ground cracked, buildings broken, air thick with smoke. People ran, cried, fell. Saw himself standing on a platform surrounded by machines. His eyes were dark, his face cold. He spoke without emotion. Given or be reset, then everything changed again. Now the sky was clear, green trees, blue rivers, children laughing. Saw himself again, but this time helping, teaching, protecting. The voice filled his mind. This is not the future, this is a choice. Raiden shouted, "What is this?" The voice answered, "A vision, a test of who you can become." Raiden felt the ground shift. He fell, then woke up back in the chamber. Earth cube was gone, only the sphere remained, and a message on the wall: "Own choice creates 1,000 paths." Man looked at him, her voice shaken. What happened? Raiden told her nothing. Not yet. At night he walked outside, stared at Jupiter's rings, and waited. Knew this was only the beginning. Zura had said the test was not over. Now he understood it was not just about saving her. It was about what he would do with the Trot. Hearth did not know what was coming. They still believed they were alone, still thought the stars were empty, but Raiden knew better. Something was watching, not to destroy, but to test, to search for leaders, for those who could shape future. Ash looked at his hand. The mark was now silent, but inside him the test had already begun. And somewhere in deep space a door had opened, waiting for his next step. The station was quiet, too quiet. Even the machines seemed slower, the lights dimmed without reason. Something was wrong. Raiden stood in front of the mirror. He looked at his face, same eyes, same skin, same scars, but something inside felt different. This thoughts moved faster. He could see every detail, every flaw, every pattern around him. He turned away, walked down the corridor, and stopped at the lab. Black sphere was still there, floating above the metal table. No one had touched it, no one had dared. Dr. Mayan watched from a distance. She nodded at him. Still silent, still afraid. Raiden placed his hand near the sphere. The moment he did, the room shifted, not in size, but in meaning. Lights flickered, the walls moved, the air changed. Then the sphere grew bright and pulled him in. Raiden blinked once and found himself in a strange place. The sky was gray, the ground made of stone. Tall towers surrounded him, all shaped like knives. He looked around. There was no one, no sound, no time. Then he saw him, a man standing in the distance. Same height, same face, same eyes. It was him, but not the Samuth other. Raiden wore a black suit, his face hard, his voice deeper. He walked forward, slow, control. Raiden stepped back. What is this place? He escaped. Other. Raiden smiled. This is you, but not the you from now, the you from a choice, not matter. Raiden felt cold. He asked what choiceth. Other one pointed at the sky. It turned red, fire rained down. Cities burned, children screamed. Said the choice: to obey or to resist. You obeyed. Raiden stepped forward. I never would. The other shook his head. You did. In another path you followed power, you let them in. You told Earth to listen. Raiden felt his heart race. This was a warning, a future that could happen. Hast. Why show me this? The other. Raiden looked straight at him. Because you are close to becoming me. You want control, you want answers. But control has a cost. Sky turned black, lightning flashed. A tall ship appeared above us. Hunters, they came down. Slow and silent, they did not speak, they did not kill, they touched. And people changed, their eyes turned white. Their minds empty, they walked without soul. Raiden felt the pain, the fear. The silence shouted, "Stopen!" The vision broke. Raiden stood back in the lab, breathing heavy, hands shaking. The sphere was dark again. Dr. Mayan rushed in. She saw his face. What did you see? She escaped, could not answer. That night Raiden locked himself in his room. He sat on the floor, closed his eyes, and he asked the question, what am I now? A voice answered. It was Zur, not outside, but inside his mind. You are a thread, woven between two ends. You can break or you can connect. Raiden asked, are you still there? Eyes. She said, watching, waiting. Asked, what was that? Placesh said it was not a place, it was a mirror, a reflection of one future. Raiden opened his eyes. He knew what he had to do, had to find the source, the center of the network, where the hunters were mad, not to destroy it, but to understand. I've needed to know how deep the test went, who made it, who passed, who failed. The next morning, he called the council. He told them about the cube, about the sphere, about the test. They listened. They doubted. They asked for proof. Showed them the mark on his hand. He showed them the data from the lab. He showed them the logs of his ship and the recordings of the strange signals. Some believed, some did not. But the truth had been spoken. Raiden left the meeting, walked alone toward the hangar. His shuttle was ready. His mind was clear, would return to the edge beyond the charted maps, back into the dark zone. But this time, he was not searching for a girl. He was searching for himself. Behind him, the station faded into silence. Ahead of him, the stars whispered his name. He was Raiden, and he was not alone anymore. Raiden moved through space alone. The stars around him felt different now. Cold, silent, distant. The shuttle was quiet. Only the soft hum of the engine kept him company. His thoughts were louder than the ship. He was not afraid, but he was not calm either. Earth mark on his hand was no longer glowing, but it felt warm, as if something inside it was still alive, still watching. Reach the dark zone, the same place where he had found Zura, the same place where everything changed. This time he knew what to look for. He switched the ship to full scan, looked for energy trails, looked for the signs left by the hunters. Nothing appeared, not on the screen, not in the scans. Then the ship began to slow, not by command, not by power loss. It was something else, a field, invisible, thick like fog. Raiden checked the controls. Everything said normal, but the stars outside had stopped moving. Stepped out of the pilot's seat, walked to the window, and saw something impossible. The stars were repeating, same shape, same pattern, looping again and again. It was not space. It was a trap. Raiden had entered the echo world, rushed back to the console, tried to break free, tried to turn around, but the ship would not respond. Then the lights went dark. A soft voice filled the room, not from the speakers, not from his mind. It was something new. Will come back. You chose to return. Now you must see. The room around him changed. The floor disappeared. The walls turned into clouds. Raiden stood in a white field. Everything was silent. Then he saw them, copies of himself, walking, fighting, running, each one living a different life, some good, some dark, some broken. And moved forward. Each copy looked at him, but said nothing. He saw one standing still. That one looked older, tired, alone. Raiden stepped closer. Who are you? He asked. The copy looked up, eyes full of sorrow. It was you. Before you made the right choice. Raiden asked, what happened? Eddie stayed here. I asked too many questions. I looked too far, and I became part of the echo. The copy lifted his hand. It was fading, turning into light. You must leave now, before you forget who you were. Raiden felt fear for the first time in days. Real fear. Turned, tried to run, but the world bent around him. The path changed. Chappelle was not moving forward. He was being pulled back. A voice returned, the same voice from the white field. There is no escape, only truth. Raiden shouted, no, I choose to leave. Ith mark on his hand lit up bright, burning. The voice paused, then whispered, so be. If light around him broke the world, cracked, shattered like glass, fell, landed hard back in the shuttle. Back in the pilot's seat, alarms were ringing. The ship was shaking. He looked at the screen. Something was pulling them out of force. Outside the Akathon he saw it, another ship, sleek, silver, silent, and inside it Zarash had come back. Raiden opened the channel. Her face appeared. I told you, she said, if you go to deep they will keep you. Raiden asked, how did you find me? Never lost you. She said, the mark is a beacon, it connects. Ush guided his ship away from the field, step by step, carefully, slowly. On's clear. The stars returned to normal. The loop was gone. The echo was behind them. Raiden took a breath, his hands steady, his mind sharp. Looked at Zura. Thank you, he said. Smiled. You are not done yet. Raiden asked, what is next? Paused, then answered, no, we go to the core. Raiden asked, what is the core? Ash looked serious. It is where they were made, where the hunters first began. It is the heart of the test, the place even I could not enter alone. Raiden asked, why? Because she said you went into the echo, and you came back with your name. Others forget, others stay, but you remembered. Raiden nodded. Then let's finish this. Two ships moved together, side by side, toward the farthest edge of known space. Behind them the echo world drifted like a shadow ahead. The truth waited in the silence between stars. A storm began to form. The stars around them began to thin. The space grew darker. Even light moved slower. Harry, Aiden, and Zora flew side by side, their ships small compared to the endless sky. But they moved with purpose. They moved with fire in their hearts. Raiden looked at the screen. A point of gravity was pulling them forward, but it was not just a black hole. It was something more. Azura's voice came through the channel. We are close now. This is where it all started. Raiden asked the hunters to test the echo. Zura said yes, all of it. Closer they moved, the more the ship began to hum. Raiden could feel it through the floor, through his boots, Through his boneous mark began to glow again Hotolivithan. He saw it a planet, or what was left of one broken in pieces. Floating in space, tied together by lines of silver light-makings, moved through the wreck. Giant towers floated without support. There was no sun nearby. Yet everything pulsed with power. Zura's ship moved ahead. She sent a signal. A narrow path opened. Between the fragments, Raiden followed her, and silence here was different. It was heavy, like space itself was holding its breath. They reached the center. A wide platform stood in the middle of the wreckage. On it a single structure, a tower shaped like an eye. Zura landed first. Raiden followed as stepped onto the surface. It was smooth, cold, and not natural. Looked at Zura. She had changed again, taller, eyes brighter. Her voice deeper said, "This is the core. This is what watches." Raiden asked, "What does it want?" Zura answered, "It does not want. It records. It tests. It chooses." Raiden stepped closer to the tower. It opened without touch. The walls folded back like waves. Inside there were no floors, no stairs, only a beam of light rising through the air. Zura stepped into it. Raiden followed. They floated up. No sound, no motion. Then everything stopped. They were inside a sphere, a giant room with no end. All around them images floated in the air. Other worlds, other Raidens, other Zuras, each one living, each one failing, each one different. Raiden turned slowly, his eyes wide. "What is this place?" he asked. Zura said, "The archive, the center of the test, the record of all paths." Then a voice spoke. Not male, not female, not machine, not human. It filled the space like wind through trees. "You have reached the end. You have passed the door. Now face the question." Raiden stood firm. Asketh voice asked, "Will you lead your kind into knowledge, or into silence?" Raiden asked, "What happens if I say yes?" The voice said, "They will change, they will rise, but they will be seen." Raiden asked, "And if I say nothing?" Voice said, "They will sleep, they will be safe, but they will remain blind." Raiden stood still, his mind full of noise. He thought of Earth, of the station, of the crew, of Dr. Mayan, of every human who still believed they were Alana. Thought of the other Raiden. Cold, hard, obediente. Looked at Zarash, did not speak, but her eyes waited. He spoke, "You are not perfect, but we are ready. We will not hide. We will receive." Light in the room changed, turned gold, then white, then clear. The voice said, "Then let it begin." Suddenly the tower shook, the platform cracked, the silver lines outside began to break. Zura shouted, "They heard us. They are coming." Raiden asked. Wazura looked at him. "The ones who failed, the ones who refused the test, the broken minds." Raiden ran back to the beam. Zura beside him. They flew down. The tower crumbled above them. Outside the space twisted, dark shapes formed in the sky. Hundreds, thousands, failed ones. The Fallon. Raiden reached his ship. Zura to her. "You started it," she said. "Now you must finish it." Raiden asked. Hausch said, "By sending the light home." Ash uploaded something to his ship. A pulse, a signal. Said, "Take it back to Earth. Let them see, let them know." Raiden looked at her. "You are not coming." Smiled, "My place is here. My path ends now." The sky around her glowed. She rose above the tower. Her body turned into light. Raiden shouted Zura, but she was gone. A pulse inside his ship began to hum. A countdown started. Raiden turned the ship, entered the path back to Earth behind him. The tower exploded. Light spread through the dark zone. The failed ones screamed, then vanished. The test was complete. Raiden flew faster than ever. His ship burned through space, the pulse beating louder, brighter. He reached the edge of the solar system. The station picked up his signal. Inside the pulse a message played, "We're not alone. We never were. And now we choose to see." The pulse spread to satellites, to networks, to screens across Earth. People stopped, looked up, watched. They saw the truth. The stars were full. The sky was olive. Raiden returned to the station. He stepped out. The mark on his hand, Fatijura, was gone, but her light remained. Stars watched in silence. But now humanity was watching back, and far beyond the last line of stars a new test began.